I am going to share a bunch of stuff that nobody's ever seen before. I'm really excited to be here. I recognize many of you, or virtually all of you, I think, and I'm just so excited to be back in Oklahoma City. Over the past 4 months, I've been living in China with I took my family over there so my daughter, who's half Chinese, could learn more Chinese, and we just lived with our in-laws, and she went to this kindergarten, and she was the only Western kid out of 500 kids at this big Chinese kindergarten. So she was speaking Chinese, and yeah, it was pretty exciting. So, but I'm glad to be back. A little bit jet lagged. I just got back like 3 days ago. My kids are super jet lagged. We wake up every day at 3 a.m. Today we woke up and we realized the daylight savings time had happened. We're like, oh, this is the first time in my life that like I'm grateful for daylight savings time, right? Because it kind of pushed us a little bit. Instead of waking up at 3 a.m., we're waking up at 4 a.m. technically. So, well, today I'm going to talk a little bit about how do I exit this? I'm going to talk a little bit about what's gone on over the last 4 months. I think it's been at least 4 months since I've been here. A lot is going on. The community recently hit 1 billion minutes of total usage, which is like 2,000 years of people like on FreeCodeCamp learning. So it's a pretty cool milestone, and we're only going to hit that once. We may hit 10 billion, or 100 billion, or a trillion. Man. That would probably be a few years from now, but you know, YouTube gets 1 trillion minutes of usage. It's insane to think about, but yeah. So I wrote this little article once I realized I was doing some math, and I realized, oh my gosh, technically we hit 1 trillion minutes. That's remarkable. And I even like calculated like the different tools we'd been using, and which tools had gotten the most usage and everything. And you can see kind of when we introduced different aspects of the FreeCodeCamp learning platform. YouTube, for example, was like the first thing we did, but it just for years just languished, and finally it started blowing up. And I've actually got our YouTube stuff over here if you're curious. It's been watched 40 million minutes in the past 28 days. Zero revenue. We don't show ads or anything. So, yeah, you don't have to have an ad blocker to use our YouTube. You won't see like car commercials. Like I always see my daughter's like watching YouTube, and she always sees commercials for trucks for some reason. I guess in Oklahoma, you know, you like advertise the little kids with like truck commercials, get them thinking about their purchasing decisions a few decades in advance, right? So, yeah, that's kind of cool. We've got this thing called Code Radio. Has anybody used Code Radio before? All right. Thanks, everybody, for tuning in to Code Radio. Code Radio itself is just this guy's laptop in Toronto and this DJ from Los Angeles who builds and maintains this playlist and basically updates it based on people like liking and disliking music, and Nightbot, which is like it's on Twitch. So if you've used Twitch, you've probably seen Nightbot before. So yeah, it's just a way for us to give the community something to rock out to, or jam out to, really jazz out to, while they're coding. And you know, neutral, commercial-free music that we specifically go through and like try to make sure this is good, but it's not distracting, because we want to get people into a flow state. That's the goal. So I am going to talk about a number of things. Got this nice big font in my editor to remind me what I'm going to talk about. Thank you very much to Kim and Chris for letting me have 30 minutes, by the way. I just emailed yesterday because I just was like, I wasn't sure if I was going to be awake enough this weekend. I was like, maybe I'll have to do, but then I was like, I feel good. So we're going to talk about what we're up to, and I'm going to show a cool flow chart. So actually, all this is basically the same thing. So I can just close the tab. We can go over here. So this is a giant flowchart of the different things that we're doing. And I think it'll kind of put a lot of things into context, like why does it take so long for things to get updated? And it seems like FreeCodeCamp isn't changing fast enough. Well, a lot of it is changing beneath the surface. I could actually probably show what the architecture of FreeCodeCamp. I think actually you mentioned dev.to. I wrote an article on dev.to. My only article on there so far. But it even talks about like our stack and how we're moving over to, let me see if yeah, here it is. I'll just show the diagram. So we're doing a lot of stuff behind the scenes to just make FreeCodeCamp faster and more reliable. And we have very little downtime. FreeCodeCamp very rarely crashes. And a lot of it's because we've adopted what's called the Jamstack, JavaScript APIs markup. And we actually had a hackathon in San Francisco at GitHub's headquarters in November, and it was focused around the Jamstack. And we did it in partnership with Netlify. So we use the Jamstack for FreeCodeCamp. Pretty much everything is using Gatsby, and Gatsby itself is using React, and everything's served through Netlify. And we have some other CDNs, like we use Cloudflare, which is a really powerful CDN, and they've got, I mean, there's like Akamai, which is the biggest CDN. That's like the industrial strength, like enterprise solution. And then there's Cloudflare, which is still kind of like up and coming a little bit, but it's still very established. And you go to like Ghana or Bangladesh, places like that, and you still have really fast access. And that's what FreeCodeCamp's all about. Like if I had to put one word, it'd be access. We want FreeCodeCamp to be as fast as possible for as many people as possible so everybody can get in there and learn to code, regardless of their internet connection or even their availability of electricity, which is an issue in a lot of these places. So, we're working on making it even more accessible, but this is a basic architectural diagram, very simple. The Changelog podcast, does anybody listen to the Changelog podcast? Okay, yeah, they just published a diagram of their stack, and it's pretty sophisticated. They use Elixir, and they're making good use of Docker and all these other tools, and we're working to get everything doing that as well. But let me just see. Just go to Changelog. I'll see if I can just pull this diagram up real quick because I think it's pretty cool. All right. Yeah. Here we go. Changelog is a very well-built website. I was talking with Adam Stacoviak, the host of the Changelog, a couple days ago, and we'll talk to him again on Monday. Because I've just learned so much from how they built this and also their excellent podcast. So this is how they do it, and I'll try to zoom in a little bit, but you can see they are using, they've got load balancers and they've got CI integration. We have all this stuff too, but I think that just the way they've laid it out is very sane, and they're doing a lot of stuff that we're not doing. They're not using exactly the same stuff, but like they use Slack, for example, which we don't use, but it's cool that they've got everything piped into Slack. So yeah, this diagram looks so much better than ours. That's why I was like showing you. I was like, well, let's show you a cool looking diagram. But yeah, this was made in like a website called MindMap. They couldn't get MindMap, so they're like, what can we do? MindMap. It's got this little bug thing as their logo. Yeah, but it's a convenient tool and it's free. We created something on there, and I'm going to show you what that looks like right now. So, FreeCodeCamp, we have this giant chart that shows all of our current initiatives, and I'm going to go ahead and just like drill in and walk through these real quick. You all want to know the nitty-gritty of what we're working on? All right, stop me if it gets too monotonous and you feel like you're in accounting class or something. Okay, so first of all, the red arrows represent like the most important top priorities, But we want better donation integration. Right now, if you want to cancel your donations to FreeCodeCamp, you just have to email team at FreeCodeCamp, and I cancel it on the back end. But we want to make it to where you can just change the amounts and all that stuff right in the settings. It's a non-trivial thing because there's a lot of security concerns, things like that, and so we haven't had time to build that out. But we're going to build it out. We're going to also have supporter metrics, like Reddit says, donations by this user have paid for N hours of server time. We can do a similar thing with FreeCodeCamp, and then you just have badges and stuff like that. And our eventual goal, this is not directly related, but it's kind of like as we expand the settings and profile section, we actually want FreeCodeCamp to have a lot of the functionality that LinkedIn has, where you can list like your entire, like I went to school and got like a degree here, and then I worked here, and you can have your entire like timeline of your career. And that's not actually that much work, but we just haven't implemented it yet because we've got a bunch of other stuff going on. Then we're working on an open API, which will be a precursor to teacher mode, which is something many institutions are emailing me about every day asking when it's coming out. And so the way FreeCodeCamp works is we don't have hard deadlines. The entire team just takes, it's done when it's done. There's a quote from Shigeru Miyamoto. I feel it's fitting since today is March 10th, Mar-EO. So he says, a rushed game will forever be bad, but a delayed game will eventually be good. And technically, we're not delivering like shrink wrap product. We could deliver something that's subpar and then increment on it, but we decide to just, people aren't totally freaking out about this. Like, oh, you need to ship this. So we're taking our time. We're just trying to make sure that we're doing it the right way instead of the fast way. So as a result, I'm not able to give these teachers and all these, people who run like prison systems and all these other places that are using FreeCodeCamp internally to train people, I can't give them like concrete deadline, and that drives a lot of people crazy. But forward progress is being made. Google gives us like $10,000 a month in free Google ads because we're a 501c3 nonprofit, which basically we have to kind of like use Google Analytics and Google AdWords in a very specific way. So we're working on like consolidating all that and making it a little easier for the people who actually write the campaigns and stuff, who are a bunch of volunteer SEOs and conversion rate optimization people. We want to give them better tools so they don't have to constantly rely on the dev team to do things. And Google Tag Manager helps them do that. They can basically propose code changes, and then we actually go in and sign off. Because if it's JavaScript running on on every page of FreeCodeCamp, we have to be very, very careful about what we actually let in. And then the big thing we're doing is, I don't know if you've been to FreeCodeCamp recently and compared it with the state of if you run FreeCodeCamp locally, but they're very different. And that's because we have kind of a production master schism, and we're working to rectify that by shipping master to production. So currently, if you go to freecodecamp.rocks, this is our staging build, and you can see it's our staging build because things are like off-centered and bugs have been filed. But yeah, we file a lot of stuff on this, and then we're working to get off of medium.com, which is becoming like an increasingly locked down platform, and we've really outgrown it. We're the biggest publication on Medium. We've been the biggest publication for like a year or so. We just haven't had the time and energy to move off, but we do have, let me just show you real quick. Over here. Here. So, I mean, like 183,000 visitors a day on average to Medium. So we have to move that traffic very gently because we don't want anybody to like have a broken experience. So that's why we're kind of treading lightly and making sure we move the tens of thousands. It's not tens of thousands. It's like 7,000 or 8,000 articles that we have on Medium now. had to move those over, make sure all the assets are right and nothing's broken and the code formatting looks good, and just address all the edge cases. So it's taken us a while to move off Medium. A lot of people ask about that, like, oh, Medium seems to be like popping up these banners and they've got like these bars at the top and the bottom trying to get me to sign in and pay them money and stuff. So yeah, Medium's great, but we've outgrown it as an organization, so we're working to move off of it. So that's one of our current initiatives. And then, so what we've got is this thing called FreakoCamp News. We've just been publishing articles of that, and this is like blown up really big, but it looks like this. We'll go in and restyle it, but most of the things that I've been publishing, I've just been publishing on here, and we've been publishing a ton of game development related stuff. Then we're working on a UI redesign, which this is the first time anybody's publicly seen any of this stuff. It's just been internal chats between me and Ahmed in Turkey, who's like doing a lot of our, he's in charge of the UI redesign. He's a longtime FreakoCamp contributor who we just hired in February? Yeah, late January. And he has been contributing to FreakoCamp for like 2.5 years, just part-time while he works other places, and we were able to bring him on full-time. So this is the color scheme. I like to call it blue steel. If you all have seen, yeah, it's very similar to the color scheme of your slide deck earlier, Josh. So it is basically monochrome with like a blue tinge. And this is what we're hoping to do with it. This is like the light mode. And you can see that we're using like monospace font. We'll probably actually switch to non-monospace for like textual pages, but most of the Chrome and everything like that is going to be monospace. Just because, like, I call it command line chic. We want things to feel like you're, a power user in the terminal, like you're in an episode of Mr. Robot. We're leaning into people's perceptions of coding and kind of playing those back across the FreakoCamp platform to really make it feel like, a power fantasy. Like, all right, I'm controlling things, I'm getting things done. And this is just a really rough, this is still, it's not even ready yet. Is that what Derek Zuliander said? But basically, we're working on getting, we're going to completely redesign FreakoCamp, and this is the big thing that I wanted to talk to you all about. This is some cool stuff too, but we're working on what I call version 7.0 of the FreakoCamp curriculum, and what we're doing is we're making all of the curriculum, which you currently see when you go to learn.freecodecamp.org or freecodecamp.rocks/learn. We are moving everything off of subdomains, and it's dramatically improving our SEO. Google claims that they don't treat subdomains differently, but they definitely discriminate against subdomains. So if you're building a new project, try to get things into subdirectories as opposed to subdomains. This is what the curriculum currently looks like. We've got basic HTML and CSS, and you come in here and you're like, all right, and it's just a series of like essentially quick tutorials. Create a form element. So
your comment about subdomains versus subdirectories, one of the things we were trying to figure out is how to do that for SaaS applications where you have different companies' implementations where the different subdomains.
we use Nginx redirects. Depending on what you use as your web server, and your like load balancer and all that stuff. I mean, it's not a trivial task. It's much easier to just do everything in DNS with subdomains. Like, we had to completely re-architect our how we're doing a lot of things in order to get things into subdirectories. But it's paying off, and I can show you some examples of how it's paying off. But yeah, I wish it was easier. I wish really Google just treated subdomains as the same, but they don't. Every subdomain has its own kind of like page rank internally as far as we've been able to observe. None of this is deterministic. Everything's a black box, and we're just interpreting the output, right? You can do little controlled experiments, and a lot of SEO experts have done those. And as of 2019, still having a subdirectory seems to be better. Again, not publicly acknowledged by Google, but confirmed by empirical studies. Okay, so this is what it currently looks like. It's very like, here, go do this. It's very matter of fact. And that's like FreeCodeCamp style is just matter of fact. Like, here you go. We're a no-nonsense organization. We don't make you even sign in to be able to access all this stuff. You can do everything you want without even creating an account. You just need to create an account if you want to track stuff, like if you want to track your progress. This is what it looks like currently, but what we're moving toward, and I don't have like a cool slide for this, but basically everything would be a project. You would learn through projects. You'd be building up. I've got a list. Learn HTML by building a cat photo app. Learn CSS by building a Picasso painting. And this one I think you'll all like if you're art fans. Learn the CSS box model by building a Rothko painting. And then, so you're going to learn, CSS animations. You're going to learn typography by building a nutrition label, which is one of the kind of like designer, like paragons of good design is like the USDA's like nutrition labels, and the hierarchy and use of typography and font weight and things like that. So you'll be building up all these different projects, and it'll basically just be, instead of a wall of text, here's how this works. Now do this. It'll just be one test after another. And the test messages, instead of being, your HTML element should have the text hello world, that follows after like a long paragraph explaining HTML and header elements and all that. We would use something much simpler, like you would just, and the whole view would be the editor. We wouldn't have the side pane. We wouldn't have any of this stuff. You're just in like a full bleed editor with big text. And when you pass a test, it just points up, and you scroll up to the next section, and injected into that editor is like a little sliver of basically like an HTML element, a React component that says what the next text is. And you just do one test at a time. So we're really trying to make it like where you can get into a flow state and you're not switching back and forth between reading and coding. We just want you to be coding. So the new test description text would be a little bit longer than the old one, but it would incorporate the actual instructional component as well. And it'd say something like HTML elements have opening tags like H1, closing tags like, H1 with the closing tag. Find the H1 element and change the text between its opening and closing tags to say hello world. So that would basically like, here you go, here's a basic fact about HTML, now go do it. And instead of having, 40 HTML challenges, there might be 200 tests, and you're gradually building up a project. And I think this is well exemplified. I mean, you can look through this entire article. I published this a couple days ago on the forum, but this is the actual project that you'll build for the JavaScript section. You're going to learn JavaScript by building an RPG. And here's what the actual code looks like. And so we'll probably provide the actual HTML CSS component just so you can focus on the JavaScript, but you'll write all the code that wires everything together, which I can just show you what that looks like. So you've got like your monsters, and those are different data structures, and you've got your different attributes of your character, and these are just integer values that you can manipulate, and you've got an array of different weapons you can pick up if you go to the shop. And we can just play this game real quick. We'll go to the store, we'll buy a weapon for 30 gold. You now have a dagger. Now we'll go to town square, we'll go to the cave, and we'll fight the slime. All right, the monster named Slime, health 15, let's attack it. The monster screams, ah, as it dies. You gain experience points and find gold. Okay, and you can see my gold incremented upward, and I lost some health in combat, but now I have some XP. So, these are all just basic data structures, but that's all programming really is, right? It's just going around and updating data structures and doing it in a reliable way. So yeah, this will just be like the basic JavaScript section. Then we'll have the more advanced JavaScript, which will probably be like a fitness tracker where you can like input like how many exercises you did and all that stuff. So then we'll explore. Again, FreeCodeCamp is very practical, hands-on coding. We don't really delve into computer science theory and like design patterns and a lot of the more advanced topics that you would get in a CS degree. And we have plenty of different supplements for that, but that's not really, that's kind of out of the scope of FreeCodeCamp, which is just to give you a ton of practice coding, thousands of hours of coding practice. So this is what we're working on right now with the version 7.0 curriculum. And I'll just go to bit.ly and create a URL that you all can go to if you want to read my full post. It's about a 10-minute read. Let's just change it to V7.0. All right. So if you go to fcc.im/V7.0, just copy that and put it really big here. How big can we make it? Sublime won't let me make it any bigger than that. Okay, so yeah, go there and you can read the whole post. So you might be wondering, like, okay, great, thanks for sharing all that information, Quincy, but how is this relevant to me? Well, we are certainly looking for people who are interested in contributing to the updated curriculum. We have thousands of people who are contributing to the code base, to the translations of the code base, to the many other initiatives we have. And if you're looking for a way to bolster your own reputation as a developer and you're looking for a good open source project to contribute to, FreeCodeCamp is a very friendly first project to contribute to, and we pride ourselves on being friendly and approachable and helpful. It's like the basic mantra of the FreeCodeCamp community is just being helpful and helping people get access to technology education. So yeah, so we're updating the UI, as I said. We created the sample project-oriented curriculum. I can cross that out. And now we're focusing on updating the UI to make it a single column full bleed code editor. And I've already assembled somewhat of a team of people who contributed to the previous 6 iterations of our curriculum. And yeah, and we're going to keep moving forward on that. And our eventual goal is here, to get everything published. And then also, we've already translated everything into Arabic, Chinese, Spanish, Portuguese, and Russian. And we've translated the guide, which is like 4,000 articles. And now we're translating the curriculum, which is the curriculum is going to change, so we'll have to translate it again. But we're programmatically translating it. We just pay Google a bunch of money and run it through their API. And then we have like a good enough translation, and then native speakers can go and hammer that into, fluent speech. So it reads like somebody actually wrote it. And then the other big things we're doing are, who here has heard of devdocs.io? Devdocs.io. This is a very simple documentation browser search engine, and you can search things like Kubernetes. You can see that, I don't have Kubernetes downloaded, but I've got TensorFlow downloaded. So this is like the documentation. So it's a really cool documentation search engine. It's got pretty much everything. It's got 311 different libraries that are fully documented here. If you want to like read documentation in a very standardized way, these are all scraped from the official documentation pages. Check it out. And this is now a FreeCodeCamp project because the creator of DevDocs recently handed it off to our community. So we're going to be building and maintaining this. And then FreeCodeCamp groups and events, which I talked about like 6 months ago, still on the docket. We have had competing priorities, but it's something that we're going to build. It's going to basically be an open source meetup clone. And that's it. That's what we're working on. So if you're interested in contributing to FreeCodeCamp, just talk to me.